Meeting of Council open, and in doing so I'd like to welcome to country. We acknowledge the Wiradjuri people, the custodians of this land on which we are meeting, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And I apologise, apparently I've been saying Wiradjuri wrong, I've been saying Wiradjuri, so I apologise for that. I notice there is 7 councillors present. There's 2 apologies. Councillor McAndrew and Councillor Goodsall. Can I have a mover that they be accepted? And seconded Councillor Smith and Councillor Ring. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Yeah, go on.
Mr Mayor, I might also note the General Manager Graham Faulkner is an apology this evening as well.
Thanks, Mr Muir. Confirmations of minutes of the last meeting. Councillor Ring, Councillor Smith.
Happy to support that.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. That be noted. Declarations of interest. I've got one declaration of interest in 8.2.4. It's a DA for a swimming pool. That's at my home, so I'll be declaring a non-pecuniary interest, but I'll be leaving the chair and leaving the meeting for that particular debate. Any other declarations of interest? Commemorations and announcements. Councillor Smith.
I've got one. I'd just like to congratulate the Lithgow Mines Rescue comp for last Friday. It was an excellent competition, and congratulations.
And I do take the 3 Lithgow sides, one at first, second and third. Councillor Statham.
Yes, I would just like to congratulate the General Manager and the relevant staff for engaging Sandra Duke from the Ombudsman's Association. I thought the training that we did on, I'll just get the exact word, the Public Interest Disclosure Management training, I thought it was excellent and possibly the best training I've seen in my time on council. I'm sure everybody that attended would have got something out of it. I can see Michael McGrath nodding. I thought it was fantastic, and I think it's something that should be compulsory for every council at least once a year.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Statham. And I must say that the facilitator in the Code of Conduct was excellent as well. Very, very good training on, and it's good to see the council putting that sort of training into the councillors and also their staff.
I have
Councillor Coleman.
I'd like to acknowledge the Workies Wolves, Group 10. They played yesterday in their elimination semi against Cowra, and they won 24-22. It was a nail-biting game, I believe, so congratulations to them. They now take on Club Mudgee Dragons next Sunday. Then after that, if successful, they're into the grand final, so I think we need to give a shout-out to them.
If they're successful, they're not quite into the grand final. There is another semi after that, but
I just think
very,
it should be acknowledged because it was such a nail-biting
it is.
game.
It was a wonderful win. Yes. Well, also, most probably, we should congratulate our Lithgow hockey girls again. They're in the grand final. The men missed out yesterday, but our hockey girls are also in the grand final at Orange next weekend. Public forum. I've got one request to speak at public forum. Mr Ticehurst, re-overhanging trees, the Hartley Valley Road. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. I just wanted to bring to your attention the condition of the trees and the shrubbery on the Hartley Vale Road, or called the siding, from there up to Darling Causeway. Part of it is the Blue Mountains, but part of it is Lithgow from Hunters, I think it's Hunters Lane up. There's overhanging trees, there's trees sort of looking sideways, and there's a lot of bends there where it makes it quite hard for people to see what oncoming traffic's coming. I understand that some of the smaller tourist buses are also using that road, unbeknownst to a lot of the people up there. They come down to have a look at the valley, and it might be a bit dangerous with the traffic, that sort of traffic going up and down. So whether the council can have a look at it and just see what trees or what shrubbery needs to be made to create greater sight distances for the traffic using that road.
Thanks, Mr. Ticehurst. I'm sure Mr. Edcom will take that and be noted. Is there anybody in the public gallery that would like to speak on any item in the agenda in public for them? Okay, so we'll move on to the General Manager's reports. Ordinary business of the order of business at ordinary meetings of council.
I'd like to move the motion with an amendment, if I may, Mayor Thompson.
Okay, we'll listen to that before we look for a seconder. Thank you.
Could I ask what the amendment is, please?
That's what I'm saying. I'll wait for that before we ask for a seconder.
Where are we? Sorry. That we replace items 1 and 2 with one item, which is that council amend the code of meeting practice schedule, general order of business to read acknowledgement of country, apologies, declaration of interest, pecuniary and non-pecuniary, closed council, confirmation of minutes of previous meeting, acknowledgements and commemorations, public forum, presentations, mayoral minutes, notices of motions, notices of rescission, staff reports, council committee reports, delegate reports, questions without notice and business of great urgency. Yep, very fast.
Okay, have we got a seconder for that?
Could Councillor Ring please explain the difference?
The previous council meeting, when we discussed this matter, a number of people have discussed bringing the closed council session earlier into the evening. This allows council to report those decisions to a public forum, and it also allows members of the public who may travel here from a slight distance, who may not get the chance to meet councillors, to be able to talk to councillors after the meeting. Thank you. As for the other items, bringing them forward, it's consistent with how council ran their meetings back in 2009. If you go to the 27th of January, about the only change I have, there's very little change, but it's consistent what council used to do in the past. I realise there are issues with having closed council early, and there may be some time issues with that, but it may remove some of the community's angst about the closed sessions or secrecy and those sort of items, because then we can report to a gallery of people when they're here the decision that's been made.
Can I please withdraw my second? I think it would be wise to keep closed council at the end of the evening. I'm very happy to move the notices of motion, and I think that's important to have them at the beginning of the meeting. People then can speak in public gallery, and then they can also leave the meeting if they so wish. But I do believe that closed council...
Okay, Councillor Statham, I'll just take that after, but we haven't got a seconder at the moment. Thank you. Councillor Goodwin. Do you want to speak to it, Councillor Goodwin? Now, Councillor Statham, you're quite welcome. Or are you happy with what you've...
I believe Mayor Thompson, that close the end of the council, and then if people so wish not to wait for the results of closed council, they're quite okay to leave before the meeting's over. So I would second. I wouldn't second what Councillor Ring has said.
Look, from the chair, I've got to say that I support what Councillor Statham has said. I know that a lot of times that the closed council does go through reasonably quick, but other times we've had quite a long debate in closed council, and I can't see the public gallery wanting to sit there for sometimes up to 3/4 of an hour. And I know that sometimes closed council has gone that long, so I wouldn't think that the public gallery would like to be sitting out there for 3/4 of an hour while we have closed council. Any other speakers? Councillor Smith.
Same as Councillor Statham. It should be at the end. Well, as you just said, time frame allows us to, if we want to debate it, and if people are interested enough, come back. Or they'll look on the website and see it the next day.
If given the response from the councillors, I'm happy to move closed council back and just move it down to the end, if councillors are happy with that.
Yeah, happy with that.
So the notice of motion moves item 5 back to the end, and everybody else is happy with the rest of it. Is that what?
Closed council back to the
Yeah, closed council back to the end. What did I say?
Notice of motion.
Sorry, closed council back to the end. Thank you. Deepen.
Can I just, can I just make a suggestion, if that's okay, Mayor Thompson? Is it possible to bring up questions with notice up near notice of motions? No, yeah, because that's what it is now. Generally, you have the notice of motions and questions with notice after each other. I just thought for consistency, we could bring questions with notice up underneath notice of motions to continue with the consistency, because a number of residents are very interested in both items.
Mayor Thompson, I have no problem with that.
So we move 16 up with...
If I may, Mr Mayor, I just might seek some clarification. Just reading from the current adopted list, we're saying closed council stays at the end. Notices of motion and questions with notice be moved up the list to somewhere below after public forum. Yes. Okay.
Sorry,
After middle
Councillor.
minutes. Okay.
Sorry, current Councillor Lind, if I can ask this question again of you, Mayor Thompson. So, presentations and then mayoral minutes, then notice of motions, then question with notice. Do we often have presentations?
Not often.
No.
Could that be moved down again?
Look, the only time we have presentations most probably is with an audit, with our auditors.
Okay.
So that most probably happens once a year as far as I...
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I just thought I'd ask that question. I'm not here or there about it.
And that can be handled with a procedural motion if you would rather it be that way.
We still have that
Yeah.
anyway.
Right, isn't it? Yeah. Is that on the screen, right? Mr Mayor, I think
Okay.
that's what they're... So as
Okay, it's on your monitors. Everybody happy with what's on the monitors? Okay, I shall put that then. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Uh, 8.2.1 is Clarence Colliery Modification 5, Workforce Increase.
I'll move that way. Thank you.
Oh, Jesus, who got in there first?
Councillor Statham and Councillor Smith. Councillor Statham.
I think this is a very well regarded report. I think it's an excellent report. No need to speak to it a lot other than the fact it's going to be an increase in positions, improved productivity for underground operations, and I think it's something that we can be very happy that there's movement in the coal industry again.
I have a question.
The report doesn't guarantee 100 jobs will be created. It says they want the capacity to increase to 100 for operational needs. They're not talking about increasing coal production. From my understanding and reading it, they're talking about increasing staff for maintenance works. And on the basis of that saying we don't need to pay a voluntary planning agreement because we're going to create jobs. Well, going from the report, they submitted 83% of the people that work there live in the LGA. But there's no guarantee the 100 people they may employ, and it might only be 5, will live in the LGA. I mean, I'm happy with that report, but I'm just not happy with the whole thrust.
Councillor Coleman.
I have a question in regards to the voluntary planning agreement, which was flagged in this report. It states that Centennial Colliery does not currently make any development contributions or other community contributions similar to that of Springvale, Angus Place and Airlie Collieries. Why is that? I'm just curious to know, why is it that this particular pit doesn't do that? Just out of curiosity.
Mr Mayor, from my, I suppose, understanding of the history of it, it is historical. Certainly when there have been sort of major modifications carried out at Angus Place, I suppose Angus Place, we'll say, is mothball, but there still was a community contribution proposed by Centennial Coal for Angus Place. A community contribution was also part of the consents for Airlie and Springvale. So that was something they were happy to propose of those operations, and that went through and was put in place. Clarence Colliery is a bit of an interesting one. It actually commenced and got approval back in 1976, is my recollection. And if you actually look at the planning documentation and the approval documentation for those days compared to what there are now, well, it's about that thick compared to that thick. So that's where they are at the moment. The reason we wanted to actually push the point a little was that whilst there were very, very positive social and economic impacts with this proposal, we did pick up that they, for historical reasons for whatever that colliery is not currently making any sort of contribution. That was put via the Department of Planning, Infrastructure and Environment, and thus the response from Centennial Coal Clarence, basically on the basis that they don't see there's a nexus and they see that there's a overall social and economic impact, and it's something that they don't believe that they should have to contribute to at this stage. That's where it lies at the moment, unless Council wants us to pursue it further.
I would also make known that we do get our water from Clarence for nothing, which is a great boost in these particular drought times. So it's one thing that Clarence have been very, very upcoming and supportive of our water supply. So I just would like to just make that point clear. In saying, in answering Councillor Ring's thing about no, it's not necessarily going to increase production. It most probably will increase production because at this particular time, because of what's happened at Clarence with a couple of injuries and so forth, they now have to completely bolt ribs and roof to a greater extent than they used to have to in the past. So it's certainly they will need more men to even keep up with the production that they've got at the moment. So that's it's certainly an important part of. They'll certainly need more men to, and it will increase productivity because of the extra staff for sure. Any other speakers? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Unanimous. Thank you. No, you voted for it. Yep. Just a little late.
I'll second that, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you, Councillor Leslie. You've got to get used to some things. I had to get used to standing up. I couldn't get used to that. Lithgow siding, coal loader modification. Moved, Councillor Smith. Seconded, Councillor Statham. Councillor Smith.
This is a much needed project for the operations of Mount Piper Power Station to get coal into Mount Piper. We all know that Springvale coal.
Another very informative report, and if this doesn't occur, then we have a loss of stockpiling at Mount Piper. So I think it's a great idea, and I sincerely hope that it gets through tonight.
Yes, Councillor Coleman.
It's great that it's being done by train. It's a shame that we can't utilise the rail more frequently with other organisations, so I think that's a big plus in my eyes.
Leslie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I note that the modification will allow an alternative source of coal, which is fine, but will this same siding allow for the RDF, the refuse-derived fuel coming from Sydney, also to be used as the fuel source for Mount Piper, or is it specifically for coal? You gave an assurance at the last council meeting that they were only going to be burning coal at Mount Piper with the new units there. I was wondering if we can get the same assurance that this is not just a backward way of getting all the infrastructure in, and then we're getting the burning of Sydney waste at Mount Piper.
I would not think that Centennial would be allowing their belts to to put the what could you say, the waste through to Mount Piper on their belting system. But it was certainly a question that we will take on notice and make some inquiries. Thank you. Any other? No. I shall put that then. Those in favour? Once again, unanimous. Very good. 82.3, Western Coal Services.
I'll move that, thank you.
Councillor Statham and Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Statham.
I think one very important note here is that it's very important to note that there's no changes as to how the coal is going to currently be handled at Springvale Coal Services. So I think it's a natural, we're not going to be changing anything, so the public will find that there's going to be very little changes, whereas at a meeting the other day there was suggestions that it was going to be something other than Councillor Smith was at that meeting, other than what it is, so there's going to be no changes, so I think that's a good thing as well.
Any other speakers? No? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Unanimous. Carried. 82.4, I shall be vacating the chair.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that Councillor Coleman take the chair.
Councillors, yes, we do have some housekeeping to do on the basis that, of course, the Deputy Mayor is not in town. Clause 6.2 of the Code of Conduct provides that if the Mayor and Deputy Mayor are absent, a councillor elected to chair the meeting by the councillors present presides at a meeting of the council. In this case, of course, as the Mayor has declared an interest in one item only, the same process applies for this one item where the Mayor will be absent. Clause 6.2 of the Code of Meeting Practice provides a process for the election of a chairperson in the absence of the Mayor and Deputy Mayor. As the person authorised to conduct the election, I firstly seek a motion that nominations for the election of the position of chairperson to preside over item 8.24 on the agenda this evening be from the floor and the election be by a show of hands.
Mr Acting General Manager, I therefore move that Councillor Coleman take the chair.
I'll just require that first motion if someone can move that.
I'll second it.
Okay. Smith and Councillor Ring. No more nominations. In which case I declare Councillor Coleman elected unopposed.
Thank you.
Why is it doing that, Mr Muir?
So we have a mover, Councillor Smith. We have a seconder, Councillor Goodwin. Any debate?
No, the report speaks for itself, acting mayor. So, no, it's just a pool and a fence.
Okay. Councillor Goodwin, would you like to speak any to it? All right, so if there's no debate, I'll put it to you. All those in favour? Declare that carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
Call the mayor back.
Thank you, councillors. 82.5 is the proposed modification of Walero Inquiry Modification 3. If I'd mover.
Yeah, happy to move.
Happy to second.
Councillor Smith.
I believe this is only an extension on what they can estimate out of the quarry. It doesn't mean any change to the time.
Councillor Coleman.
I note that it is state significant and that it will continue for a further 30 years, so that's great for the area in regards to jobs. A disturbance on the footprint of the quarry would increase, so my understanding, and this is where I have a question, do they have plans for rehabilitation after the 30 years? Do we know, Mayor, what they're proposing to do after 30 years has come and gone? I know it seems like a long time, but 30 years can go quite quickly.
There'll certainly be rehabilitation, but I'll hand that over to Mr Muir.
Yes, that is correct, Mr Mayor. It certainly will be. In the staff and their assessment of the information in our initial submission to the department, did seek some additional information on the visual nature of the quarry. Now, visual can include both quarrying activities, levels and things like that, but also can include rehabilitation. So whilst it is inherently part of the environmental documentation, it's something we have sought a little bit more information on.
Thanks, Mr Muir. Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. What's the penalty should, in 30 years' time, and it does seem a long time to me when you're my age, what is the penalty that if such rehabilitation does not take place? I mean, is there a bond? Is there any sort of response that can be applied by the then council? And of course, I do note that it is state significant, and therefore we're just noting these things. We don't have any say about this. This is a government. Whatever happens is a government decision making on this. But you know, what is that? Has that been addressed in the submissions that came through?
Mr Mayor.
Yeah, I must say I haven't seen it addressed. It is typical in quarrying operations, or more typical in mining operations. There's certainly bonds in place through they used to be called the Department of Mineral Resources, but that's part of their mining lease that they carry that out. So I'm unsure in this one, other than you are correct that the authority is the Department of Planning, Environment and Infrastructure. That's their correct name now. The conditions of consent will be administered by that department, and any compliance issues, if there is non-compliance of conditions of consent, will be a matter for that department. So that'd be something that they would have to take up through their compliance regime, yes.
Councillor Ring.
Sorry, can I just follow up on that?
Straight after Councillor Ring, he was on his feet first. Thank you.
I appreciate that this is economic impact for our community. They're increasing their footprint, and I remember when this was going through, there was a lot of concern by the community, the visual impact in Walero. And I seriously think as a council, when these sort of developments come to us, we need to be asking some very hard questions about the future, because it seems it's not the first sort of quarry that increases its size by stealth. I'm not saying it's anything underhanded, but I think they should be doing their work thoroughly in the beginning so that we as a community understand what the potential long-term impact can be. So I just wanted to state that I think we need as a council just to be vigilant on that in the future.
I did, just one moment, Councillor Leslie, and I'll get you. I did notice up at Bell's Quarry, up at Clarence, that as the footprint went further, they started to rehabilitate behind themselves. So I would presume that this would be part of the conditions of the quarry, but the questions certainly need to be asked. Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's just that over 30 years, a small amount of money put aside by the Walker Quarries per year would not be a big impost on them. It'd be part of the sort of the voluntary contribution stuff or whatever. But at the end of it, the amount of money that's actually put into that bond, it would be significant, and therefore would be, you know, an incentive for the rehabilitation of the quarry. And indeed, as you say, perhaps part bit by bit or if necessary at the time. I'd like perhaps yours or the acting general manager's comments as to whether this particular recommendation is sufficient to encompass the general manager act, you know, take that sort of delegated authority to move along such lines as I'm talking about.
Are you, sorry, is that a foreshadowed motion?
I'm asking advice as to whether the current recommendation is sufficient.
Without going through all the environmental documentation, it's difficult to answer that question. However, if the council was of a mind to add a point number 4, that a supplementary submission be provided to the Department of Planning, Infrastructure and Environment in relation to the provision of a rehabilitation bond in any consent, that could certainly happen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. That would really satisfy me. I don't know about the others, but me.
Is the mover and the seconder happy with that? Okay. Any other speakers? No? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Unanimous. Eight 3.1 is a public road transfer, Port Macquarie Road, Bogie.
Happy to move.
Councillor Ring, have I got a seconder?
Happy to second.
Councillor Coleman. Councillor Ring.
The report speaks for itself. Possibly we need to look at what other roads we can offload to national.
I was just about to suggest the same thing.
More than happy to help the administration find a few.
I'd say Mr Edgecombe's very, very happy.
I agree with Councillor Ring. If we could move other roads onto the national parks, I think that would benefit our bottom line. It doesn't actually say how it would benefit our bottom line. Is there an answer to that?
Mr Edgecombe.
I'm just saying in budget-wise, how in monetary budget savings, which possibly we could spend somewhere else, is there an answer to that?
Yep. So, as I've indicated in the report through you, Mr Mayor, this section of road contains significant threatened species, 2 of which I can't quite remember the names of, but they're quite prevalent in that particular area. So when we do maintain the road, we have to send specialist ecologists out to tag and identify every single plant so that we don't touch them. Each time that costs us between $8,000 and $11,000. Because it's about a week's work.
To $11,000 goes back to, I'm assuming, the roads budget?
It stays within the roads
It
budget.
stays with
and
the
gets
roads
spent elsewhere,
budget,
yes.
so we can then utilise that somewhere else, Mr Edgecombe?
The total pool wouldn't change. It would just allow us to better maintain other roads, yes.
So that's a benefit.
Any other speakers? Okay, I shall put that. Those in favour? Carried. Unanimous. policy review, 10.7.
Happy to move.
Adoption of policy, period of 28 days. Councillor Ring, moved. Second? Seconded, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Ring?
No, the report's straightforward, Mayor Thompson.
Any debate? Any speakers on this? No? Okay, so I shall put that then. Those in favour? Carried. Unanimous. Eight 3.3.
Happy to move.
Happy to
Public exhibition
second.
of Lithgow Transport Plan. Councillor Ring, Councillor Coleman.
This is a project initially I did not support, but I did attend the majority of public meetings with the consultants. They convinced me of the value of the project. I think what we've been given is a very good report. I'd like to congratulate the administration for that. It not only provides us with guidance for the future, it provides us with a blueprint for how we can allocate funds into the future. So it's not guesswork, it's on a logical progression. So I think it's an excellent report.
Councillor Coleman.
I, one, have always encouraged this. I think this is a great thing for the area. It'll be a great thing in regards to tourism and our residents enjoying our wider area. My understanding it goes out for exposition for a period of 28 days, so I'll be interested to see what happens when it comes back. So I'm assuming that it will come back to council, is that correct? Yeah, so great work.
Look, it is an extensive plan. 130 in the attachment. It's 136 pages, but I did note on page 11 that the Tony Lucchetti Sports Ground is one of the better grounds in the Central West and should be utilised more. And also on page 14, it said about Wallarowing Sports Ground. I believe that somewhere down the line, and in this report, and it'll come back for debate, but just for something for councillors to think about, I think that our number one ground, especially in the Tony Lucchetti Sports Ground, needs a rest. And I also think that if we could get that grant that was going to build a new grandstand and change room facilities out at Wallarowing, that would give some of the sporting teams in Lithgow a chance to give that ground a rest, because it certainly needs it. But that's not got anything to do with the debate. It's just something for councillors to think about. Any other speakers? Okay, I shall put that then. Those in favour? Aye, carried. Uh, 8.4.1, water report. Councillor Leslie. Councillor Smith. Councillor Leslie.
Yes, Mr Mayor. I checked this evening before I came here, and Warragamba Dam now is down to 51%, and the whole of the Sydney water catchment thing is 49.5%. It won't be long before someone in the government decides that Lithgow Council, being on no water restrictions, is taking water out of Warragamba Dam. And I think we need to be prepared for that. So despite the fact that Lithgow Council is getting a good water supply, at least I hope it continues, from Clarence, powers that be will think, yes, that's a good water supply, but we need it for Sydney. And so it's just a warning, I think, that we need to watch that, because this time last year, Warragamba Dam was at 68%. And just because a drought has gone a long time, statistically, it's likely to go just as long again. It's not as though, it's gone long enough, it therefore has to rain. That's not maths, and that's not statistics, and that's not the way the environment works. So I'm just raising this so that we don't get ourselves in a position where we think this is all rosy in the Lithgow local government area. It's because other groups and areas will be be watching us, and things will happen.
Fully agree, Councillor Leslie. I think the walls are already circling, I do. But I just might get a comment off Mr Buckins relevant to that, what Councillor Leslie just put up.
Yeah, certainly through you, Mr Mayor. Council currently in a reasonable position as far as our drought planning goes. The Fish River Water Supply does have its own individual drought management plan, of which water is supplied to the upper mountains, which essentially feeds Sydney Water. They're under the same restriction regime as us, and it's based on demand. Now, currently our demand is quite low, which means we haven't had to implement restrictions. The next level of restrictions come in on the Fish River scheme at 25%, and at that point we will need to consider moving to water restrictions. Farmers Creek is currently sustaining the supply at the moment whilst Ever Clarence is operational, but should issues occur there, we will also have to consider implementing drought restrictions.
Question for Mr Buckins. In regards to the Clarence water transfer system, what is the drama with the infrastructure at Clarence? If you need, please explain.
Certainly through you, Mr Mayor. We were informed a couple of weeks ago that there was a large quantity of water that was discharging out of the holding tank. What we found is that the tank has actually sprung a leak. Yeah. The construction of the tank, it has a rubber liner in the base that's bolted to the wall about halfway up. And listen, full thanks to the staff at Centennial Clarence Colliery. They've actually gone about determining the height of the leak and have changed the operational set points of our pumps so that we can continue to run the system. It just means that the header tank that services our pumps now runs at about 50% maximum rather than at the full capacity. But Centennial have worked with us for that to occur.
And another question for you is, correct me if I'm wrong, when the Clarence water that the Wollongambie, we're not allowed to pump down the Wollongambie through towers well above us, that some groups didn't want to happen anyway, so that excess water will be pumped out to Springvale, I believe, which will then, any leftover water will keep Lake Wallace topped up a certain percentage of the water. I hope, because in my recollection, I would rather see Lake Wallace full than the water going to Sydney. I know we most probably won't win the argument, like Councillor Leslie said, the walls are most probably circling, but at this present stage in our local LGA, we need Lake Wallace full before we let water go. And if that's the way it's working at the moment, well, that's good for us. But as I said, people powers to be stop the water going down the Clarence, out of Clarence, through incidents and other things that happen. But now the water's going to come this way, and if we keep Lake Wallace full, that's a great thing for us, or a lot higher than what it should be.
Right up.
Mayor Thompson.
Councillor Ring.
Councillors are right. We don't know how long the drought's going to go on for. We are lucky to have the Clarence transfer system. It does provide us with a lot of drought proofing. However, the Oberon Dam, the Fish River supply will decrease. I'd just like to know whether or not we've ever considered at what point we'll cease taking water to ensure that Oberon has a secure supply. Because if we are going down that path, then we have an argument to increase the amount of water that we are taking from Clarence. Have we ever considered that in the past? Is it something we can consider?
Mr Buckins, through you again.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. That's somewhat complicated to give an answer to. It certainly hasn't been considered to cease taking water from Fish River. We do struggle to meet high daily demands out of one source. So during summer peak periods, we need both supplies to operate. The two can't, one can't supply everything independently when the demands are high.
If I may, Mayor Thompson, I appreciate that, but if the drought does get more severe, we may be faced with that position.
We have been faced with that in the past. Oberon Dam nearly got down to 5% at one stage, and so we have been faced with that in the past. And at that particular time, we certainly didn't have access to the Clarence transfer system either. I do believe that. Going back to what Councillor Leslie said, that the Warragamba Dam is dropping by about 0.5% a week. It's not going to be very long before they're starting to scream for water if the drought persists. So, I take on board what you say. We'll note that, and I'll get the General Manager to look into that.
If I can.
By all means.
Just to add a point onto that, under the drought management plan for the Fish River scheme, at 8%, all customers are cut off other than Oberon. So Oberon has the remaining 8% and no other customer can touch it. Leading up to that, they are considerably reduced down to, I think, 70% of your annual allocation, but at 8, it's capped. No one can take anything further.
I just once again, I do remember that last time that Oberon got down to that, that they tried to take our allocation away from us, or a good amount of it, and Councillor Fisher at the time said there's no way we'll hang on to our allocation under all circumstances, and so yes. No, so I shall put that then. Those in favour? Carried. Unanimous again. 8.4.2, pressure sewer system policy.
I'd like to move this one as well, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Leslie, Councillor Ring.
Normally, I'd wait for comments before I'd actually speak to something like this, because you wait for comments and you see what happens in the community. But I actually happen to be one of the few people in Lithgow that has benefited from this system of the little sewage pump outs. It was when I did my renovations a few years back and got rid of the septic tank that was there, and that was terrific, getting rid of the septic tank, because we then suddenly got quite a nice area that could be used for outdoor activities, whatever, and so that was a benefit. And this will, and in speaking to this, I'll be referring in some cases to what's going to happen at Cullen. So, because I appreciate that's coming up later in the Operations Committee, but it's something that's of great value, because when we wanted to link up with the sewerage system that runs down Kirkley Street and then across the bottom of my property to the sewage pumping station near the South Barnfells gun emplacements, it was not possible to get a gravity feed from my house to Kirkley Street. I couldn't get the 1 in 60 drop. I could have got a 1 in 60 drop from the house down the hill to the sewer line that runs across the bottom, but it comes down the hill and then up again, and so to get that drop, it would have had the sewer line in mid-air, and to do it diagonally across the property would have been silly, because it ruins any potential use for that property in the future. It, however, was very difficult to get this system through Lithgow Council, and I thank Mr Muir and I thank Mr Nichols, because when I finally got past the very unhelpful former plumber who worked at Lithgow Council, who gave no help and no support and no sort of guidance as to alternative methods of doing it. Fortunately, Mr Muir and Mr Nichols understood the problem we had and saw the solution for what it was. A little pump out that sort of worked when needed, and of course it can go up and down hill. It doesn't matter, because it's the sufficiently small bore and a 2.5 centimetre a tube. That's all you needed, So we could just go straight along the driveway, down the middle of the driveway, a small drain, and it worked extremely well. And it's something that this report, when it goes out for public exhibition, should at least be able to get comments about it, and so that the council staff are informed of how it can work in difficult circumstances, such as my property, and there must be many such properties around that would be able to get on such a scheme. It works extremely well, for example, along the Nepean River, where the sewer line along the roadways came in much later, and so many houses along the sort of the river are downhill from the road. So a very simple little pump up to the street and into the sewer, and Bob's your uncle, and so I really think that, and this will work really well, in my view, for Cullenbullen, because again, the pump out is smaller than the current septic tanks. It doesn't overflow. You don't have any sort of leakage, and also you don't have the problems of having to find a gravity feed, which therefore might go through your neighbour's property, because now everyone has a street frontage, and so wherever the street frontage is, you just pump to that street frontage, and then you get into the sewer lines that sort of will work their way down the streets, down to the sort of the major catchment, the major sort of the sewage waste treatment plants, and so that will work really well, and I would hope that it's when we have that meeting with the Cullenbullen community, that I'd like to be there just to point out not as a councillor but as a beneficiary of this system, that just how effective and how good such a scheme is. So I look forward to sort of the public exhibition and the comments, but I would recommend to anyone who's listening on our closed circle, whatever it is, that it's something that should well be supported.
We'll certainly take you with us, Councillor Leslie, for a salesman, for sure.
I implemented a low-pressure septic system similar to this out at Hartley when I was working for Parks. It is a good system, minimal digging, it reduces costs, but it will also allow areas in Lithgow that are still potentially on septics to hook into the sewer system at a fraction of what it would have cost previously. It's also going to allow some areas to be developed that could not previously been developed. So I think it's definitely the way for us to go.
Thanks, Councillor Ring. Any other speakers? Look, I think it's essential that that during this 28 days and as quick as possible, that we get out to Cullenbullen and make them aware of what's possible here, and because they're starting to ask questions out there exactly where we're up to with their sewers. So I think it's imperative that we get out there as quick as possible.
Excuse me, Mayor Thompson, is there a date set to go out to Cullenbullen?
Not as yet, but I'm sure that it will come out during next week in an email. Councillor.
There's a resolution to come to Operations Committee.
To go out next week, is it?
No, to go to for community consultation.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, but I want it urgently. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
We'll get a date.
Yeah. Yeah, it will come up in the operations. They're just saying it'll be in the operations minutes that we go out to consultation out at Cullenbullen, but I want it to go out as urgent as possible. So we'll make a date very, very quickly. I haven't put that yet, so I'll put that. Have I put that? No. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Unanimous. 8.5 is finance and assets reports. Policy review, tendering policy. 8.5.1.
Happy to move that.
Councillor Coleman, have I got a seconder? Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Coleman.
I think the report speaks for itself.
Happy? Any debate? Okay, I shall put that. Those in favour? Carried. Eight 5.2, tender delegations report.
I'll move that, thank you.
Second that,
Councillor
please.
Statham.
With an amendment, actually, so
I'll hear the amendment before I ask for a seconder.
My amendment would be that in financial implications, there's a balance on the project being of $114,991. Yes, which is contingency money, and it may or may not be used for landscaping costs. This has come in under budget. We allowed $389,965 with $200,000 grant. I believe that the skate park it's fantastic. This is good news. However, I would like my amendment with that surplus money that may or may not be used for landscaping costs for $14,000 of that, so there will be still over $100,000 remaining to go to Arts Out West. I think it will be criminal if Lithgow City Council vote to give no money to Arts Out West. Thank you.
Mr. Gurney.
Through you, Mr Mayor, just for councillors' information, if that amendment is proposed, it would be a transfer of capital budget to an operational expense. So it would still impact the operational budget to allocate those funds. It would add to council's deficit for the year because it's moving funds from capital to operational.
Can I just ask a question, please, Mayor, on that? Yep. I understand Councillor Statham's sentiment and I agree with you. However, in regards to that, in regards to moving from one budget to another, isn't there certain protocol that actually, in order to do that, don't we have to get minister's approval or something? That's my question. I thought that was something that you have to go through a certain process. Am I wrong?
Through you, Mr Mayor, there is no ministerial approval required, but the usual process is to do it at the quarterly budget review.
Oh, okay.
Mr. McGrath.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I do have some background information on the skate parks in plural. So there's Portland and Wallerawang Skate Park. You might recall that originally when the two skate parks were planned and were about to go out to tender, they were going to go out to tender together as a combined project. We had to hold back for a period of time while we sorted out some native title issues with Portland, and rather than hold Wallerawang up, we decided to split the project in two and called for two separate tenders. I am aware that Wallerawang is probably going to go slightly over budget because, again, a variation occurred where we had to move the skate park to avoid, at the time, an unknown sewer line. So that cost quite a bit extra to undertake that change. So we won't really know exactly how much money we've got as a pool for both skate parks for a period of time. Hopefully by Q1 review, budget review, we will. But at this stage, I couldn't sort of say categorically how much we've got for that combined project of the Wang Park and the Portland Park when looked at as a whole.
Okay, thanks, Mr. McGrath. Before we go any further, have I got a seconder for Councillor Statham with the amendment? For the amendment, seconder, so the amendment lapses. Can I have a mover for the recommendation?
I'll move the original recommendation.
Councillor Coleman, Councillor Smith, Councillor Coleman.
Look, I understand Councillor Statham's sentiment and I actually agree with her in that sense. But I think it's important that we wait until both projects are finished, that we actually have a look at the budget moving forward and then from there decide where the money goes. In regards to Portland Skate Park, I think it's really important this goes ahead and goes ahead quickly. I think it's a great thing for Portland, a great thing for the kids. Anything that invests in Portland is a good thing. You know, we're getting a lot of tourism out at Portland, which is really beneficial, and this will add to that. I just have a question. When are we looking at a completion date?
Mr McGrath.
Wang is ahead of schedule and is almost finished. September, I think, is the period of time when that will be completed. Portland will be a couple of months later.
So are we looking before Christmas?
Yes.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Councillor Smith.
I agree with Councillor Statham too, but we need to finish these two projects before allocate money to we all after that works for maybe after 4 o'clock.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'm not sure, Councillor Smith, I'm not sure how we're going to do that final finish.
And also, Mr McGrath, is that plate and equipment from Lithgow that we spoke about, is it coming back to Wang? Because a lot of residents have asked me.
Through you, Mr Mayor, my understanding is that a new set will be provided.
Thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillor Goodwin.
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor, to Mr McGrath. You said that the Wang skate park isn't complete as yet?
Through you, Mr Mayor, no, not yet, but we're looking at September.
And it's fully fenced to keep people out? Because I was there, I was driving past the other day and it was absolutely jam-packed full of kids skating in the skate park. So once it's open, it's going to be a magnificent thing for Wang.
Okay, well, thank you for that piece of information. Yeah, I think the fence should be intact until it's officially opened, yeah. I'll check it out.
Any more debate? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimous. Eight 5.3, gifts and benefits.
I'll move that. Thank you, Mayor Thompson.
Be the second, Mayor Thompson.
Moved Councillor Statham, seconded Councillor Ring. Councillor Statham.
Oh, very clearly, I think with the Ombudsman representative Sandra Duke, I think we all are very aware, we were aware of gifts being registered, but I think it's sharpened up all of us councillors and the staff to know that, you can't take it for granted and it is illegal not to declare a gift that we have been given.
Yes, I certainly got a gift the other night at Mines Rescue. I got a towel, or I think I got 2 towels. But yes, exactly, and I certainly registered it. Councillor Ring.
No, the report's straightforward. Thank you, Mayor Thompson.
Any other speakers?
Yeah, I would concur that the training was very well put together, and when I received the gift the other night, it made me a little bit concerned. I even approached you, Mayor, and said, we best declare this on Monday. So, yes, it was good training.
Yes, declare everything. That's the way that I see it. Any other speakers? Okay, I shall put that. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Unanimous. End of the year, 8.5.4, financial reports. Councillor Ring?
Procedural matter, it's straightforward, Mayor Thompson.
Any other speakers? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Carried. Unanimous. Carryover 8.5.5, carryovers, revotes for inclusions in the 2019-20 budget.
Happy to move, Mayor Thompson.
Councillor Ring, have I got a seconder? Councillor Smith. Councillor Ring.
Just one point. In the Finance Committee, I did raise a couple of issues with Mr Gurney concerning some of the recurrent items that were proposed for coming over. One of those has since been removed. I know it's only 4,000, but congratulations to the staff for acknowledging they would not be able to do that project this year.
I just have one question in regards to the Union Theatre dressing rooms. Are they completed or are they half completed or where are we up to?
Half. Mr Muir will know.
Yeah.
Well, Mr Muir would know.
Mr Smith. Mr Muir.
In progress, exact finalisation date I'm not sure. I know they've been doing the screw piers in the last week or so. So it's tracking along a little bit delayed, I think.
Any other debate? Okay, I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried? Unanimous?
Happy to move.
85.6, investment policy.
Happy to move, Mayor
Moved
Thompson.
Councillor Ring, seconded Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Ring.
This report partly answers a question I asked at the last council meeting about the impact on our revenue from investment funds, given the decrease in official interest rates. Unfortunately, that looks at reducing our overall revenue by 300,000, which does have budget impacts. This policy will claw back 25,000. Around 72,000 we've clawed back through the emergency services levy being deferred this year. But I think it's a very good policy which will help us manage some difficult times ahead. And during the Finance Committee meetings, I'd like to have regular discussions or reports on how we're actually finding those savings, because it's going to be a difficult job for Mr Gurney to actually find savings to achieve our goal of coming in with a balanced budget.
Any other speakers?
Yeah.
Yeah, Councillor Leslie.
Sorry.
Councillor Statham.
No.
Councillor Leslie. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment, a point 5. I'll read it. The Lithgow, point 5. The Lithgow Council write to the Premier and the local member advising them that as the emergency services levy was not raised with councils and the New South Wales electorate before the state elections held in March, that we expect that this emergency services levy hike will be deferred indefinitely. At the moment, in speaking to it, at the moment we're just playing the victim. You know, we're given a
Just before you speak to it, I'll better see if I can get a seconder.
I'm happy to second that.
Okay. Speak to it, Councillor Leslie.
At the moment, we're just playing the victim. We're given a hike, just told without any consultation and without anyone in the community being aware that you're up for $72,000 more. And then we get this press release, email, whatever, from the Deputy Premier saying, oh, that's okay, we're going to defer that. They're not going to stop it, they're just deferring it for 1 year because they got a bit of flack. Their theory is, of course, wait a year, everybody will do their budget, everybody will put it in, they won't worry about it. And what's to say it's not going to go up a further hike? It's unreasonable. It was always unreasonable. We're still paying over $500,000 anyway for services that are solely, or mostly, the responsibility of state government anyway. And so local government is being they're the people that can be used. They're the people that can be sort of just worked on because we are the servants, in legal terms, of the state government. Well, we shouldn't just fall over and sort of, pull our forelocks and move on. We should at least let them know that this is not acceptable and that we expect it not to happen in the future. Therefore, we want this emergency service levy hike deferred indefinitely.
I remember when this topic came up prior to the state election and the amount of councils that talked against this. There was a rigorous campaign against the state government of the time, which is still currently the same state government. And I believe that we need to strongly show that we do not agree with this levy being part of our budget.
I don't think this came up before the state election, and it certainly didn't.
Wasn't it straight after?
Yeah, it came up after. Anybody else like to speak to this?
Mayor Thompson, I'm going to have another go at getting money for Arts Out West, possibly unsuccessful. I was wondering if Councillor Ring would please consider in the motion that he moved, since that we're not going to pay the 72,000 Ks to the Emergency Services levy, you've obviously sourced another project to drop out to pay that, and now we've got this coming in and we're not paying this money. So I'm going to attempt again to get a minimum of $10,000 out of the 72K that we're going to get back to put towards the Arts Out West.
Councillor Statham, I think that you most probably should wait till Arts Out West comes up and then put that argument across
Well, it's
where
too
that
late
money's,
then, Mayor Thompson,
where
because
that money's going to come from. Yeah.
Mayor
It's already
Thompson,
voted on then.
I'm not prepared to accept that at this point. I've already provided Trinity with an amendment to the Arts Out West motion seeking $10,000, and it will relate to this issue.
Yeah, yes.
So,
Look, we're still debating the amendment. I haven't put that as yet. So
I'd like to speak to the amendment. I actually do agree with Councillor Leslie and Councillor Coleman. Cost shifting by state governments has been horrendous, but I'd like Councillor Leslie possibly to consider amending his motion so we also send this to the local government conference as an item to be discussed at the local government conference, if he consider amending to allow that to happen.
I have no problem adding that addition.
if you'd like to check on the screen number 5 with the piece that Councillor Ring has put in, that it also goes to the state LGA, Local Government Conference. Put that in as a point 6. Are you happy to put that in as point 6? The member of the amendment and the seconder, happy to put that in as a point 6?
Yep.
All check-in monitors, are you happy with what's on the monitors? Okay, then I shall put the amendment. Those in favour of the amendment? Okay, the amendment now becomes a motion. Those in favour of the motion? You'd carried unanimous. 85.7, hardship policy.
Happy to move.
Councillor Coleman. Has it got a seconder? Councillor Ring. Councillor Coleman.
I think it speaks for itself.
Councillor Ring? No. Okay, I shall put that if there's no other debate. Those in favour? Carried, unanimous.
Move the next
I'll move
item.
the Arts Out West, thank you.
Move the next item, Mayor Thompson.
Move
with
Councillor
amendment,
Ring,
thank you.
seconded Councillor Statham.
I'd like to move that we delete items 1, 2, or recommendations 1, 2, 4 and 5, and that item 3 is changed to funding to Arts Out West for the 2019-20 financial year of $10,000.
I'll second that. Oh, it's already been seconded. Right.
Councillor Statham did point out correctly, we have had some savings to the emergency services levy. I mean, I've struggled with this. I support Arts Out West. I've worked with them a long time. The report that was submitted, for the 10,000 we put in $63,000. Arts Out West not only help with, they help with economic development in a number of areas, and it's really critical to help us move forward. It is a allocation that should be standard in the budget, and I'll be pursuing that through the Finance Committee this year to make sure it is in there. On one hand, having been a manager in the past and managing millions of dollars of budgets, you want to balance it, but at the end of the day, we do have savings. Okay. We had savings in emergency services levy. We're facing a difficult budget, but I don't believe by funding this, we're placing any more strain on the budget.
Well, I'm very pleased to see that the councillors are going to support this tonight, because I think it would be criminal if they decided to choose not to. I've been on Arts Out West now for quite a few years, and I do see the work that goes into this. I do see the productivity that we gain from it, but most importantly, fortunately for our Lithgow local government area, we are increasingly becoming art cultured and minded by craft. You know, we have plenty of markets around our area, and I think that the variety of craft and markets and paintings, as well as sculpturing, many forms of art, this is Lithgow. It's not just sport. We value our sport and we contribute to our sport. But I move an amendment that we give them $14,000. They've asked for more than that. I think $14,000 will allow us to have work with Halloween. It'll allow us to have work with Lithgow.
Just hang on, Liz. I get a seconder for your $14,000. Councillor Leslie.
Councillor Leslie. This is imperative. I've sat around that board table for quite a few years now, and what you see is what you get. And it's only up to the person that's involved, that is representing your local government area. It's up to them to see how hard they can work to get money. This is funding that I think is very well worthwhile, and I don't think there'll be one ratepayer out there that will begrudge them $14,000.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to support that amendment to increase the money, because a decision not to support Arts Out West would be a decision never to support Arts Out West again. Once this sort of thing is off the budget, you just don't get it back on. You need to have it as part of your cultural beliefs, part of your the reason you have a council. It needs to be sort of part of the whole sort of reason that we are people in Lithgow. Because without this sort of cultural background, we're just a boring bunch of people. Now, not everyone will want to participate in all these events, but then not everyone goes and plays hockey on our beautiful hockey fields. Not everyone goes and sort of uses the Tony Licchetti Sports Ground. If we want to save money, just put a sign on the Tony Licchetti Sports Ground saying, closed until further notice. But that's not right either. So we just have to sort of be working, with them. The other thing, of course, if we don't put our contribution in and pay our way, we miss out on the subsidies that are provided by the state and federal government, which in itself is supporting the Arts Out West funding broadly, and they're putting in a lot more than we are. It always amazes me that people sort of think that we shouldn't help because climate change is an example. Well, what's it to do with us because we're only such a small country, we can't have anything to, we don't make any difference. It's the same argument as saying, well, why give money to charity? Because your small amount that you give in charity is not going to make any difference. It's a false argument. Everybody has to contribute, and everybody has to be part of it, and everybody has to be sort of part of the group. And so I think it's right. I also think, however, Mr Mayor, that we need to enter into a new memorandum of understanding with Arts Out West. I don't think that's part of either the motion or the amendment. So
I'd be happy with that.
Thank you, Councillor Statham, for incorporating that, I think that would make it, at least it makes it on a much more formal basis. So Arts Out West is something we need to support. Our cultural heritage, supporting sort of cultural groups within the community, and they're broad-based. We're helping people with disability. We're helping people with dementia programs. We're helping people on in mental health concerns. We're helping Aboriginal artists. We're helping sort of a whole lot of people. So it's a broad field in which we participate here, and I believe that such participation can be done. I note that it was the Community Development Committee had a decision not to support this funding. Now, the Community Development Committee was right. This is not a decision that should have been brought to the Community Development Committee in the first place. It's their brief is to sort of work out how to fund local groups. This is bigger than that. This is broader than that, and so there shouldn't be any criticism of the Community Development Committee on their decision. But it came to council. We had an opportunity to look at it, and I hope we make the right one.
Councillor Leslie, any other speakers? Councillor Coleman.
Councillor Statham has my support. I agree that $14,000 should be contributed to Arts Out West. Lithgow is known for its sporting community. It is known for its coal industry historically. It's also known for its rail industry historically. But it's important that it is known for art and culture. It is important that we support this and nurture this. Art and culture bring tourism and education to the future generations of Lithgow.
Mr Mayor, if I could just point councillors to item number 3 on the screen. That's the way the administration thinks that the resolution in relation to the MOU should read, if that's okay for councillors.
Okay, any other speakers?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I just want to say that this is a very important decision we're making for Arts Out West. It's very important for the community that we support Arts Out West, and what everyone else has said is totally right, and we should be supporting it, and that's what I'll be doing. Thank you very much.
Look, I think that at the last meeting that all this virtually did was put it off for another report to come back. I think that Lithgow Council was always going to support Arts Out West. I don't know whether under the circumstances that we should be going to $14,000, but if that's the feel of the council, I'm quite happy with it. In saying all of that, I think that we need to still monitor what happens to Arts Out West as far as Lithgow Council is concerned, yearly, annually. Councillor Ring.
Mayor Thompson, just with respect to that, Arts Out West do send council an annual
I realise that.
but the annual report needs to be tabled in the council.
Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Smith.
I was the one that asked this to come back to council, and Arts Out West is a good thing. I don't believe we should give them 14. I'll be the first to say that I believe we should give them 10, and it was 10 last year, keep it 10, and then review it, not review it every year. I like the idea of council rings, have it as a standard thing for 10 grand. It's a great thing that we have. This is what I wanted to come out of the report, is everybody got up here and had to say, and I think there's no doubt it's going to get over the line. 10 grand, in my opinion, is a good thing this year, and I think we should stay at 10.
Any other speakers? Well, we have a motion in front of us that we provide $14,000 to Arts Out West and authorise the General Manager to negotiate a memorandum of understanding. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Smith and Thompson against. Uh, 8.5.9, update on policy of internal reporting, Chief Financial Officer, Information Officer.
I'm happy to move.
We have
I'll
a
second
recommendation
that,
on the
thank you.
bottom of page 40. Move Councillor Coleman.
I'll second that, thank you.
Councillor Statham.
I attended the training the other day and this came out of that very well put training. So it's great to see that staff are coming forward and putting their names forward in regards to this. It's well done to the staff and congratulations.
Mayor Thompson, yes. I think in a small country town council, we sometimes not overlook, but sometimes we don't like to speak up because of retribution or because we know somebody that knows someone. But I think the way Sandra Duke from the Ombudsman's office talked to us very clearly, very distinctly, very plainly, that we have to be accountable and transparent. And I think this is an excellent idea.
Thanks, Councillor Statham. Any other speakers? Okay, I shall put that then. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. 6.1, fees and charges review, parking, permits, traffic control plan and cemeteries. Traffic control plan and cemeteries. Have I got to move it? Councillor Ring, have I got a seconder?
I have concerns with this, Mayor Thompson. I'm happy to second it for the purpose of debate, but I might withdraw that at this. I might withdraw it.
Okay, Councillor Ring.
No, I've got no comment at this stage. I'd like to reserve my right to speak, Mayor Thompson, if I may.
Thank
I'd
you.
rather hear what Councillor Coleman's got to say.
Councillor Coleman.
No council likes to, charge our residents more fees and rates, especially when it comes to, cemeteries. I have a few concerns in regards to this. Has this gone out to community consultation? Was there any submissions in regards to this?
No.
Okay.
Did it go out?
Yes.
Yeah. No submissions, no.
No, okay. So no one objected then? All right. So where will the money be used for once collected? That's one of my questions that has been brought to my attention. So once the money is collected, if this is passed tonight, where does that go? What is that used for?
Mr Muir?
I might seek some advice here, but in relation to parking, it's a fee to be charged for parking during construction. So once that fee is collected, then it'll go to revenue, would be my view. Prepare, review, approve a traffic control plan. Similarly, that would be something which would be revenue, but that would offset I would imagine, the council officers' time in reviewing and improving the traffic control plan. Cemetery flower attachment, I believe this has been a fairly long-standing charge, but it might have slipped off the books, did it? This is when there's a particular attachment that's purchased to go on a columbarium wall. There is a cost in sourcing, and Mr Edgman might tell me if I'm incorrect, but there is a cost in sourcing these particular items, and this would offset that cost of purchasing those columbarium vases, I would imagine.
So has this an existing item? Has this been in the budget before?
It hasn't been in the budget in my very recent memory, and we haven't been able to charge it, but it's quite regularly requested, and it does come at a reasonable cost to council. We've set this fee at cost, and it's similar to what surrounding councils provide in terms of a fee for that service.
Thank you.
Can I
Councillor Goodwin.
ask a question as well? Can someone explain, through you, Mr Mayor, can someone explain to me the at cost plus 20%? Does that include non-for-profit organisations such as Anzac marches? If we're like, this is for the prepare and review approved traffic control plan, and say the White Ribbon Walk.
Yep. So that our fees and charges don't discern between not-for-profit or for-profit organisations, but the ability remains for a not-for-profit organisation to approach any member of the council and seek for that fee to be waived. The mayor has those rights as well, I believe. So it would apply in the first instance, but waivers can be sought. And what we mean by at cost, for example, if, and purely for example's sake, Iron Fest came to council and said, we want you to develop our traffic control plan this year. That would take one of our engineers a number of days to put together and consider all of the options. That would be quite a substantial amount of money. Or the Cullen Bull and Progress Association may say, we want a chocolate wheel, could you put us together a traffic control plan, and it takes 20 minutes. So that's what that allows for, essentially, so that we're charging people fairly across the board.
Any other, no? So I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimous. Council Committee reports, Sports Advisory, 9.1. Councillor Smith and Councillor Goodall seconded. Councillor Smith? Goodwin? Councillor Goodwin? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Economic Advisory Committee.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Councillor Coleman, seconded Councillor Ring. Councillor Coleman.
I wasn't at the meeting, unfortunately I was unwell, and thank you for Councillor Ring for putting my apology in. I do, however, want to acknowledge Damon Cuppett, I hope I said that right, who recently resigned. He will be an enormous loss to council. He was such a professional, always pleasant, happy to answer any question I may have. I assume the position has been advertised. I just have a question in regards to that.
The ads haven't gone out yet. It's incumbent on me. I'm reviewing the actual PD and seeing if we can tweak a few things before that goes out.
Put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimous. Operations Committee meeting. Move Councillor Ring, seconded Councillor Smith. Councillor Ring?
No.
Councillor Smith?
I'm pleased to see hopefully this recommendation of a reallocation of the 30,000 for Wildwyn Street, Portland, we'll get over the line for the footpath and front garden beds. It's been a long time in the coming, and hopefully we can solve that drama. And also the Cullenbullen community to consult the possible implementation of the pressure sewer system. And they're good things, and we need to get these things moving.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. I'd also absolutely love to congratulate council staff on the job they've done on the bridge at down in Colebrook Street. Absolutely wonderful job, and it's really set the walkway and the cycleway in good stead, and very well done. Councillor Statham.
Mayor Thompson, I condone what Councillor Ring has said. Councillor Smith has said that Portland, it's very much overdue for a little facelift, and I think it's going to be very well received in Portland. Can I ask what the project was that was deferred to retain that $30,000 to do Portland?
It was from the footpaths, but what particular footpaths, I'm not quite sure. Councillor, Mr. Edgecombe.
We have a capital project, a renewal project in this financial year's operational plan to renew a number of footpaths within Lithgow specifically. It was simply a matter of reallocating $30,000 of that total 300,000 odd to Portland instead. So this money will be still spent on renewal of footpaths, just in a different location.
Mr. Leslie.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have an amendment. I'd like to to change point 2 to read that the garden bed improvements at Walgan Street and Williwah Street, Portland, be carried out as soon as possible.
Happy to second that.
In October 2018, I moved in this council that Lithgow City Council make the revitalisation of the Portland CBD a high priority by scheduling the works as outlined in item 10 in the Operations Committee agenda, that was then, and carried out as soon as practicable. That was seconded by Councillor Coleman, I thank her for that, and was voted against by, the amendment was put and lost, and those voting against were Councillors Goodsell, Councillors Goodwin, Councillor McAndrew.
Point of order. He's out of line. No.
All right, okay. So I understand that what I moved in October 2018 to get the work done as soon as practicable was not supported by the majority of councillors, except for myself and Councillor Coleman. Now, we know, I don't know why they didn't do that, because suddenly now, we've got to do the works at Portland. Now, we've already delayed this work long enough. Operations is a continuum. The council will schedule a number of works and will carry them out, according to a program, devised by the director. And if a work gets slotted in because it's considered important or dangerous or for any other good cause, then all the other works just move down the page. And reports on the progress of various jobs will come back to the Operations Committee and help manage this process. Some jobs will slip over into the next financial year, but that does not mean a year's delay. And remember this, because that motion was defeated in October last year, it won't get done until October this year. That's put that delay 12 months or longer, depending on when it's fitted into the program. So instead of doing it as soon as practicable, this council decided it wasn't important enough to do. And why the people of Portland had to put up with this, I don't know. And why this council wasn't supporting them, I don't know. But we don't need... And then the other aspect of this point 2 recommendation is that we fund the garden program improvement by taking money from the footpath construction. We don't need to be robbing important works like footpath construction to fund other works. It can be managed through prioritising the work. And just remember this, in a community with a high proportion of elderly people, such as Lithgow, footpath construction is an essential component of our charter. I don't care whether it's 5,000 or 30,000 or whatever, it's taking money off a job that needs to be done and needs to be done in its sort of, as it was originally designed. So I just think this council has just dropped the ball on this one. They had an opportunity to fix Portland at the time. For some reason, they chose not to. I suspect it was because I moved it. But
I think Councillor Leslie, that's enough. I don't think you have to go down that line. The resolution of council was not to do it at the time.
Right.
The resolution of council now is to do it, and I think that's where we've got to stop.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 12 months too late.
Yes, Mayor Thompson. I hear what Councillor Leslie has to say. However, in 2018, I'd walked the streets of Portland on several occasions. I didn't think it was a matter of urgency. However, after the Christmas spectacular there last year, I think it was a matter of urgency. Things had deteriorated gradually and then now quite quickly. And I had a lot of shop owners contact me. Now, it was brought back to council for Dr Leslie's, just to refresh his memory, and Councillor Ring moved, seconded by Councillor Coleman, to defer it again. So I managed to get support from other councillors here to not defer it again, and it's going to happen. And it is quite urgent that this happens. We do not want to be sued for somebody tripping over some of the roots of trees that are now coming out on the footpaths. Portland's a lovely little village. It needs to have its main street upgraded, and the footpaths that Councillor Leslie is talking about, I don't know if they're not completed, well then they're not dangerous. So at the end of the day, the Portland footpaths now are in a state, I think, of disrepair, and it's time they get done. Thank you.
Right, a reply.
I actually haven't even spoken.
I have to,
second the motion. And,
I have to put the amendment first.
yeah, and I actually have my own.
Seconded, you seconded.
Yes, and I've got issues that I'd like to raise separately to that as well. Mayor.
Okay, well, Councillor Coleman.
I think in regards to the footpath and the gardens, I think enough has been said in regards to that. And we've all made decisions in the past that we change moving forward. You know, we've all voted accordingly to our conscience on the night, and we just need to get on with the job. The issues I have, there's a few things that I'd like to bring to the attention of the council. In the minutes, I note that a working party has been created, meeting regularly, and one of the topic of the conversations is a footpath and pram ramps has been minuted. At the council, and the councillors might remember that at the December 2016 council meeting, I put up a motion in regards to footpath disability access across the LGA, and it was actually carried. So my question is, and that was several years ago, actually it was one of my first motions I even brought to council, 2016. The working party, is it looking at my motion? Is it revisiting the disability access in high pedestrian areas? Are you consulting with the wider community on this issue? I note that you are looking at, footpaths in general, but are you taking the motion that was presented by me and passed here in 2016 in regards to that working party?
Mr Edgecombe.
Through you, Mayor Thompson. Yeah. That indeed has been taken into account. The reports that have been produced by the council staff do directly deal with the issues of slip resistance on our main street footpaths, as well as disability access by way of the gradient of pedestrian pram ramps for the entirety of the main street. All of that information has been presented, along with detailed drawings showing which ones are compliant and which ones will require further work to make them compliant. Making those compliant is no small task, because in many instances the main street's been designed with standards of the past, and there are Telstra Endeavour Energy access pits in close proximity to those ramps, very much limiting the grade that can be used. So options to solve that may be raised thresholds across roads, things like that. We do have ways and means to solve the problems. It'll just need to be considered in due course as part of that process. So in short, yes, the recommendations of your notice of motion at the time have been addressed.
In regards to the working party. So it hasn't come back to council yet, I note, this council, because my motion included a report to come back to council. I also note that motion also noted that it would go to the Community Development Committee because of the Disability Action Plan that we have, part of that committee. So is there work in regards to that? Is it coming back here, or is it going to the Community Development Committee, or will it be staying with this internal working party and we'll just see it recorded in the operations?
So my intention was to bring it to council through the operations committee, as is general convention. The minutes of the operations committee and the agenda were included as an attachment to this report. So all of that information is therefore presented to council tonight. If you'd like me to present it to council in a separate item for alternative discussion, I'm happy to do that.
I just would like to also acknowledge Mr Edgecombe, the work that you've done in regards to this, and I thank you for that. Even though it's been a long time coming, I understand the amount of work that has to be put into this. It was an extensive motion, and I do thank you for that.
Okay, any other speakers? Right, a reply, Councillor Ring. Hang on. You've already spoken.
But I also have a foreshadowed motion.
No, you didn't. You put an amendment up. You put an...
I want to put another amendment after this. It's a different item. Sorry, the Operations Committee deals with a whole series of issues. This was one issue which I put on. I didn't want to confuse the separate motions because I was doing this amendment, see how it went, and then I wish to move another motion on a different issue completely arising from the Operations Committee.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll move this. We'll look at this one first then. Councillor Ring.
The report we did earlier, with transport, for removal.
Well, let's get rid of the First Amendment. Those in favour of point 2, doing the work at Portland as soon as possible, those in favour? Okay, that is carried. Now, Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is following up from Councillor Coleman's comment about the Main Street, also item 6.9 of the Operations Committee meeting, which was the Main Street Lithgow renewal. And if I could just read from it here, an internal working party committee was created where members consisted of the infrastructure team, water and wastewater team, customer service team leader, R. Gurney, G. Faulkner, and who have met on a regular basis in relation to the Main Street footpath with regards to the renewal of footpath of Main Street Lithgow, including footpath material, pram ramps, banners, seating and garden boxes. That's good. That's good. But I believe it's missing an essential component, and that is the community, the people who actually walk on it, the people who use the footpaths, people who want to get, who have disability problems in getting on and off, and I believe we need another amendment so that this working party ask for comments from the community, but specifically from the Chamber of Commerce, and community groups such as the View Club, Quota, the Vale of Clwyd Ladies, the hospital groups, any sort of people any groups that working with people who have disabilities, and the general community, so that the feedback comes back to this working party as to what the community is finding is wrong with the pram ramps we already have, and maybe we need pram ramps in different places. Maybe we need them sort of outside the banks, outside the shops, outside the sort of the chemists. I don't know, and it's not for me to know these things. I'm not the person who has, apart from my knee injury, I got at bowls the other day, but I'm not the person who has a problem with needing pram ramps, and I don't have children in prams and that to work these things out. But to have a committee that does not actually ask for public submissions, I believe is is missing the point. So my amendment is that this committee, seek further responses from the community, and as I said, specifically from the Chamber of Commerce and those community service groups within our community.
I'm not sure if we've got a chamber anymore, but we'll certainly look to see if we have. Have we got a... I don't think that we have.
I just have one question. With the Portland footpath work, you spoke of a working party. Is it at all possible to have a councillor on that working party, or is that totally not acceptable?
If I could make a comment on both Councillor Leslie and Councillor Statham's recent comments. Firstly, there was no committee or working party proposed for the Portland footpaths. Unfortunately, that's relatively simple work that's been identified as through the operations committee, and the scope's defined. With regard to Councillor Leslie's comments, the working party is already in process of developing a extensive communications plan to define and inform both the operations committee and council how council the administration proposes to communicate with all different community members, disability groups, and organisations, as the case may be, to ensure that everybody's equally consulted and has adequate opportunity to comment on the proposal. But at this stage, the plan is purely at an overarching high level, and we're just developing the information required that we can present to the community and facilitate consultation with. When the time comes, yes.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Leslie?
It's just that at the committee, there was no mention of this at all. It was not mentioned. All we got was that we provide samples of concrete or asphalt. I mean, that in itself is something that the community needs to know. I just felt that it needed to be put on, put in the report or in the minutes that such a committee is going to be done. I congratulate the director for having it done. I would, however, hold that my amendment stay so that it becomes part of the public record.
That's our amendment.
They've already resolved on the substantive recommendations before council and foreshadowed a motion. It's very clear what a foreshadowed motion is.
No, but he put it up as...
Point of order, Mayor Thompson, because I'm confused. Councillor Leslie has...
What's your point of order?
Shouldn't there be a seconder for Councillor Leslie's foreshadowed motion?
Well, was it a foreshadowed motion or another amendment? Councillor Leslie, what was it, a foreshadowed motion or another amendment?
Well, it was just an amendment, a second amendment to the report.
Well, look, yeah.
However, Mr Mayor, if you believe it should be a separate motion, I'd be happy to go that way. I'm in your hands on it.
Just one moment.
Sorry, through you, Mr Mayor. The recommendation resolved by the Operations Committee. Point 2, recommend the administration commence the external quotation process for the proposal and report this information, including a project communications plan, to a subsequent meeting of the Operations Committee for review. The information is already part of the Operations Committee recommendation and is included in the report.
Yeah, that satisfies me. Yeah. Okay, any other debate? Okay, those in favour?
Point of order.
It doesn't have to be seconded. It's already included in the report. He just read it out.
Yes, I can read it too, but the report itself it's just a report. I mean, it was never moved at the committee. The action was that we provide the only action from that particular item about Main Street Lithgow renewal was that the administration provide image samples of both concrete and asphalt footpaths for consideration, and that the item be brought back to the committee for endorsement prior to being presented to council. That was the motion that was put. Moved Councillor Smith, seconded Councillor Ring, and carried unanimously by the members of the committee who were there. It's got nothing to do with what I've been talking about asking for comment from the public about the ramps themselves.
That's already been covered in Councillor Coleman's.
She didn't move anything, she just spoke to it.
No, I know she didn't, but there's already a report coming back about the ramps and footpaths for Councillor Coleman.
I'm sorry, Mr Mayor, if something that was moved in December 2016 is still the item that's coming back, forgive me on this. I somehow thought that this matter had just been lost in the never-never.
I think it's about time you stopped grandstanding, Councillor Leslie. So I'm going to put it now without the amendment, without Councillor Leslie's amendment, because it wasn't seconded. So I'm going to put it. Those in favour? Against? You're in favour, Councillor Leslie, or against?
I voted in favour. We've got to
Good.
get something done.
9.4 Finance Committee meeting.
Happy to move, Mayor Thompson.
Move Councillor Ring. Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Ring.
Look, it's one of the more important of our committees. Finance is in everyone's bag, but basically it is the governing council that is responsible in the end for our financial performance. And I'd like to congratulate once again Mr Gurney. I believe he does a wonderful job. I do cause him lots of stress as much as I can, ask lots of questions. You know what I'm talking about, Councillor Smith. But it is very good to have someone who can provide the answers, and if he can't on the day, they're provided by at least 10 o'clock the next day. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ring. Councillor Goodwin? No? Any other comment? Any other debate? Okay, I shall put that. Those in favour? All in favour except Councillor Leslie. Yeah. Okay, Sports Advisory Committee meetings the 14th of August, and before we get a mover and a seconder, Mr Edgecombe wants to clarify something. Mr Edgecombe.
Just clarifying, within the minutes, there was a misunderstanding wherein Maggie Thompson, the recipient of the requested financial assistance, it was understood at the time that she was a national competitor, but it turns out she is state, and council has a policy 4.2 financial assistance, which dictates how much we provide in terms of financial assistance for national versus state. So if it could, in order to comply with that policy, if we could amend point 2 to approve financial assistance of $300. And I will note that that was her original recommendation.
Okay, I've got to move it. Councillor Smith. Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Smith.
No, I'm happy, and Mr Edgecombe's picked that up, we're very good to go. He's right what he says.
Councillor Goodwin. No. Those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Notice of motion, Councillor Goodsall. Dog-free leash area at Vale, out behind the Vale Hall.
Mayor Thompson, in speaking with Councillor Goodsall today, she asked if I'd move this on her behalf.
Yep.
She didn't believe it was necessary for her to be here to discuss it. It's basically asking for staff to determine the public interest in a dog run behind the Vale Hall, which I think is a good idea. And if there is support for it, then it can go into the bidding process for next year.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you move that on her behalf, yes. Councillor Goodwin?
Yeah, no, it's a great idea. I think it's good. We've got one in Sanford Avenue, one out on the highway, and we used to move one at the other end of town. So it's a good area.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. It's important that that us as a council, with good companions, pet companions, that we do have runs and have sanitary bags and so forth to get people used to picking up the faeces of their pets and so forth and putting them in a bin. It's good training, and I think it's essential that we can get those sort of runs where people can have their dogs off leashes, because it keeps them off the main playing fields and so forth. And it's only natural that people will want to get their dogs off a leash and let them have a little bit of a run. Okay, so any other debate on that? Okay, I shall put that. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimous. These are now questions with notice. What I'll do with these questions of notice, at the end of them, I'll just put them that they be received and the answers of the administration. What I've got to say, though, with some of these questions of notice, they can be fixed up very, very easily with a phone call to the particular director that's involved, because some of them I find very, very frivolous. But anyway, Councillor Coleman.
In saying that, Mayor Thompson, I acknowledge what you say. However, residents have come to me with these questions on notice, and considering we're being live streamed now, these particular residents are watching council to see that those questions are answered and then reflect what is meant in the minutes. So they come to me, they want to put them to council, they want to watch them being answered. I'm working for those residents.
The first question is traffic cones.
Yeah, so a resident brought this to my attention. He said that there was work done on Bent Street. Council staff blocked Ray around with 4 cones, or I'm assuming it's council. I might be wrong. It might be a contractor. I don't know. But the question that came to light, and the reason this question came to light, the resident said to me, I'm very curious at how much council spend per annum on traffic cones. What is the lifespan of the traffic cones, and how many does the council hold overall? You know, he said to me, it's very important that we save costs wherever we can.
In response to that question on notice, the administration have calculated the amount spent on traffic cones for every financial year from 2000 to 2000/2001. On average, council purchases 206 traffic cones a year at a cost of $1,611.61, which equates to around $7.84 each. Traffic cones are used by staff working on urban roads, rural roads, water and wastewater. And on average, council generally holds 50 cones within its stores for issue to staff. Based on the average usage rate of 206 per year, the assumed number council holds overall is 153 at any given time. The typical reason for the purchase of 206 cones per year is theft, which requires their replacement well before they reach the end of their usable life.
Can I just say something, please, if that's okay, through you, Mr. Mayor? I've thought about these questions without notice, and I've looked through them for the last 3 agendas. Each day, or at least 4 days a week, I get complaints from any number of different residents for any number of reasons. I write to the General Manager, CC in the relevant staff, and lately Mr. Muir has got quite a few questions from me. But I believe it's crossing into operations. It's not our business what the cones cost. And it's our business as an elected councillor to bring this information to the General Manager and or the directors. I see this as something that's not been offensive to Councillor Coleman or Councillor Leslie, but I see this as something that's quite new come up, And a lot of people think it's happening because of the live streaming. I'm not standing up here now because of live streaming. I'm standing up here now. We come to a council meeting. There's a lot of items to get through. They're important items to get through. I'm not for 1 minute saying these are not important, but these items, if somebody complains to you at the beginning of the month, you've got to hold them over for 3.5 weeks before you get an answer. That's what the General Manager and the staff on the top desk are for. We don't want people waiting 3.5 weeks before they even get an answer, let alone for that to happen. So I do suggestions with question with notice are very different to notices of motion, and I think questions with notice are something that a councillor that is elected to work for our public, you do when they complain, you go straight to the top and you put it in writing, you send them an email, and then it's up to them to address those people. This is something that I've found not many councils do. I've done a lot of inquiring about it, and I feel like it's every time somebody complains, we bring it to a question of notice. I don't believe that's correct. I'm not saying it's illegal, but what I'm saying is we're here to work fast and hard. We need to get the complaint and get it to the right people and get it fixed.
I'm going to call a point of order, Mayor Thompson. This is not a debate.
That's not a debate, yes.
It's in the code of meeting practice. I don't agree with the questions, but it's in the code of meeting practice. If those questions are critical of staff, they can be denied. But we're not here to debate. The people
I take on board and I uphold your notice of motion, yes.
Thank you.
Right. Councillor Coleman.
I feel as though that I should respond to that.
No response.
Well, then,
that was my fault to let that go. I shouldn't have allowed it.
I'm happy that you acknowledge it, Mayor.
Yep.
My next question is, which was brought to a resident, by a resident, which department monitors and responds to the direct visitor posts made to the Lithgow City Council official Facebook page? There's a number on there. They'd like to know who answers them. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. I can't actually say who answers them, but I can say that it's my department, the People and Services Department, is responsible for monitoring and responding to visitor posts made to Lithgow City Council's official Facebook page, and we've ensured that we've got backup provided by Mr Gurney's Department, Finance and Assets.
Thanks, Mr McGrath.
My last one is, what future plans does Council have to replace the ageing pipes so this does not keep occurring in regards to the main water pipe broke at Hermitage Flats near 21 Colbeck Street on the 10th of August 2019.
Mr Buckins.
Through you, Mr Mayor. At the moment, the mains renewal budget is fully committed, so the work won't occur this financial year, but it will certainly go forth as a priority project in next financial year.
Thank you. Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is an important question because many of these pine plantations are nearing harvesting time, and this government is highly likely to sell them off.
Point of order. This is not a platform for discussion. It's a platform to ask the question as per the code of meeting practice.
And I'll uphold that point of order as well, yes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My question is that the privatisation of Forestry Corporation plantations has been raised in the New South Wales Parliament. And as this would affect employment, roads, biodiversity issues, among other matters, within the Lithgow LGA, could the Council bring down a report on the implications to our area should such privatisation occur?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. To date, there has been no formal proposal or report released by the state government. Only when full details are provided by the state government could a detailed report be prepared on the implications to the Lithgow LGA. Council could write to the Minister for Agriculture to seek further information. However, any action the Council wishes to take now or in the future should be through a resolution of Council. One way of seeking such a resolution could be by a notice of motion.
Mr Mayor. Councillor Leslie, budget for conduct reviews.
Mr Mayor, not wishing to speak to the item, except that expressions of interest have been called by Lithgow Council for conduct reviewers. It's on the website. So because those expressions of interest have been called,
Point of order.
how much...
He needs to ask the
The
question.
question,
It's not a platform for debate
it
or
is.
discussion.
Yeah, but you've got
Ask the question.
to... Don't get
It's up to me. Ask the question. The question's written there. Do you want me to read it, or are you going to read it?
I'm happy to read it.
Okay.
It just needed the background information to understand why the question was asked, because, you know, in a local government, in an open government area, it's pointless asking a question if it's meaningless when it goes out. So
No, not if
the
it's a question with notice. If it's a question with notice, it's a question with notice. Otherwise, bring it in as a notice of motion.
You'll find, Mr Mayor, that in future the questions will be very, very long without any pause to try and get...
They're long enough with you, Councillor Leslie, as it is.
What is the budget for conduct reviewers, and how much has been spent on conduct reviewers this calendar year?
Thank you. Mr Muir.
Mr Mayor, there is no specific budget for conduct reviewers. Any use of conduct reviewers is funded through the legal budget. Under the procedures for the administration of the Model Code of Conduct for local councils in New South Wales, the complaints coordinator of a council must arrange for various statistics to be reported to the council and the Office of Local Government within 3 months of the end of September of each year for the year to September, known as the reporting period. This includes total cost of dealing with Code of Conduct complaints made about councillors and the General Manager during the reporting period. The statistics for the Code of Conduct the statistics for Code of Conduct complaints for the year to 30 September 2019 will be reported to the Council no later than the November 2019 ordinary meeting.
Thanks, Mr Muir. Could I have somebody move that the questions answered by the staff be accepted? Thanks, Councillor Smith, Councillor Ring. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. 12.1, notice of rescission. Councillor Statham, Councillor McAndrew and Councillor Leslie have assigned this. Councillor Statham.
Firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Wayne McAndrew and Councillor Stephen Leslie for having faith in me to actually proceed with this rescission motion. It's the first one I have ever done, but I felt a need for it to be done. I think that teaching children to swim is not a necessity, a luxury. It is a necessity, and we have to be careful that we make sure that children any age now that can't swim are swimming on a regular basis. I do believe that it is important not to charge the parents when they come in to sit and watch their children swim, and I'd be very happy if the council staff would consider voting on the management recommended today and the comment. I think that we'll have some very happy pool teachers, and the teachers that we do have down at our pool at the moment are above expectations, and sometimes we're not in the luxury to have that. So I think at the moment to retain those teachers and to keep the parents coming to our heated pool and not Bathurst or Katoomba is imperative to keep the numbers up for it to be able to run. So I'm urging councillors to please support the rescission motion of Councillor McAndrew, Councillor Leslie and myself for not only Marie Evans but any other teacher that is down there that was having children come in and their parents or carers paying for their admittance while they watched their children swim.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, the prevention of children drowning in swimming pools, Mr Mayor, this might be of concern to you, and in rivers and in our area is paramount. But I would just like to point out that this is actually a rescission motion from 3 councillors, Councillors Statham, Councillor McAndrew and myself. So whilst the commentary is just I, it really should be reading we. So just we do actually all, and speaking on behalf of Councillor McAndrew here, we actually are in favour of this rescission motion and speak as 3 people.
Mr Edgecombe would like to speak to this.
Just very quickly, through you, Mayor Thompson. The recommendation reads that Lithgow City Council rescind the current fee structure $2.50, which should read $5, for pool entry resolved at the June 24th, 2019 council meeting for parents, carers of participants to a nil fee. The current fee, as it exists and as it always has existed for participants of Learn to Swim provided by council has always included free entry for parents and their caregivers. That's all. The fee proposed that was resolved by council at the last meeting is for the participants only. The carers and the parents of those participants currently get free entry as the fee stands.
A question.
Yeah, quick question, Councillor Ring.
Just to clarify what Mr Edgecombe said, no one's been disadvantaged by the fees or policies that this council has brought in. Is that correct? That's what you're saying, isn't it? No one's been disadvantaged.
The fee has changed,
Yeah, but
so we're now
that's
charging a new
consistent.
fee.
We are not providing our operation with an unfair financial advantage. So basically we are complying with policy 9.3, competitive neutrality. We're not upping the price on private instructors to drive those students to our instructors, are we?
What we're doing, to put it simply, providing lane hire for a number of students does come at a cost to council. What we're doing is trying to recover some of that cost. That's put simply.
If I may, Mayor Thompson, the lane hire for the swimming instructors is $16 per half hour. For any other person that wants to hire, it is $23, correct? Thank you.
Any other speakers to this?
Yeah, I just need some clarification. So the recommendation by Councillor Statham, Councillor McAndrew and Councillor Leslie is that they rescind the current fee structure of $2.50 for pool entry, resolved at the 24th June council meeting for parents and carers of participants to a deal fee. But Jonathan's saying, let me get this clear, that that already occurs. Is that right?
When a commercial Learn to Swim provider decides that they would like to come into this facility to provide Learn to Swim to the public, they are currently charged a fee for lane hire, and we charge each entrant a $5 fee for entry to the pool, which allows them to continue using the facility afterwards if they so wish, but the parents and supervisors of that child get in free.
So the student comes in and pays $5.
Yes.
Irrelevant of who they're swimming with.
If they are swimming with council Learn to Swim, that fee is included in the price.
And they're irrelevant who they're swimming with. Their parents and carers come in free of charge.
That is correct.
So if this is passed, then we're just passing something that's already in policy.
No, not really. Not really.
Okay, so someone needs to explain to me the difference.
So I think Councillor Statham's intent, correct me if I'm wrong, is to remove the charge of $5 placed on students participating in commercial Learn to Swim.
Look, it is confusing, but the way that I understand it is a commercial Learn to Swim instructor, if you're learning to swim with a commercial Learn to Swim instructor, you pay $5 to get into the pool. If you go in with a council Learn to Swim, it's $2.50. Is that right?
If you come in with council Learn to Swim, we charge you a flat fee of $16, which includes pool entry.
For how long?
Indefinite.
Well, after 45 minutes of debate, and I'm sure every councillor in the room would be going home very confused after that big debate 3 months ago, I've been contacted to see if we could get a rescission motion. So there's some very unclear determinations or decisions that, because Councillor Leslie and Councillor McAndrew looked into it in length and had no trouble supporting my rescission motion. Marie Curran was delighted that there is a decision motion that 2 other councillors actually are going to support me on. So she feels that what you were doing, she feels that her carers and her parents were getting charged to go into that pool, and council, carers and parents doing council lessons, were not. and that is very discriminatory. I don't know if that is correct, but that is what came through the last time we spoke here, which was a debacle. It would have taken 45 minutes of to-ing and fro-ing, and nobody could leave these premises knowing exactly what the outcome was. It was very confusing.
Well, the way that I see it, and this is the way that I see it, if a person through council goes and learns to swim and it takes him 16 days, he pays $1 a day. If a commercial one goes and learns to swim and it takes him 16 days, it costs him $80. That's a big difference.
So the fee we charge is for 10 weeks and $160 total, $16 per lesson.
Oh, per lesson. Oh.
Mayor Thompson, just if I may, just to clarify, both the council-run program and the private-run programs, both are charged $5 for the child who's the participant learning, and both programs allow the parent or supervisor to come in free.
No, only council one.
Both.
The $5 fee is built into council's
Yep.
existing $16 fee, and both of them still do allow parents and guardians to enter free if they're supervising their child.
So as I said, both are charging $5 for the child plus a free adult to come in with them. There's no difference. Thank you.
Not much more clear when it was debated for 45 minutes 3 months ago.
Mr Mayor.
Look, yeah, just whether it helps or not, I don't want to confuse things anymore, but page 72 of the council's fees and charges outlines commercial learn to swim participant per entry, $5, but in brackets it says includes pool entry for child under 12 years plus one supervising parent or guardian. That's in the fees and charges, as adopted by council.
Where does it leave this motion? Where does it leave this motion? Like, where are we at?
With the rescission motion, I don't think that it reads. It's not reading properly.
There's nothing to rescind.
Well, I passed it on to the General Manager and Trinity, and I had never done a rescission motion before, so they did the writing and sort of worded it so that it would be easy to manage, easy to read.
That's right.
If I may suggest it through you, Mr Mayor, perhaps we take this offline and we arrange some sort of independent information session so that we can debate this offline, get everybody clear on exactly what's happening. I'm happy to dedicate my time to that so that we can make a decision that's informed by everybody. It's just a suggestion so that we stop wasting, well, not wasting, but
Yes.
stop prolonging the end of council meetings to deal with this issue.
Look, I'm comfortable providing that we're not taking, that the commercial provider's not being
Disadvantage.
yeah, she needs to be treated exactly the same as a normal council.
Absolutely.
I have one question, Mayor. How many commercial swimming instructors are there?
Only
Can't be-
two.
Can't be just Marie.
No, it's two.
Yeah,
It's two.
Right. So I wasn't here at the debate when this was on before, but because we're in Perth, but this is very confusing. I like Ms. Edgham's idea. Let's take it out of here and take it on a forum and sort it out.
How often do council run council under swim programs?
Councillor Statham, are you happy to go down that line, or?
I'm very happy to go down whatever gets a result for both council and independent workers, teachers.
I
There's
think we're all on the same length here. We just
Equal.
got to get it right. That's,
Suggest the council was to resolve an information session to be held with councillors. That was an amendment, perhaps.
look, could we get an amendment to say that that we forego the rescission motion with an information session with councillors, with all councillors?
As Councillor Leslie has suggested, I'm more than happy to defer this and get a report back from Jonathan that with a letter sent to Mrs Curran and one to sent to the other lady at the swimming centre that is a teacher, and also to the people that are teaching the council classes. There should be one price.
Yeah, we need
Not
a
price
level
for
playing
council.
field for sure. Yes, I agree. Yep. But in saying that, you know that the commercial learn to swim instructor has definitely got to pay for the lane hire. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The lane hire was never the
No,
question. It was the fact that parents come in, carers, to sit and watch, and they were getting charged.
Yeah. Right, I will defer that then, and we'll bring it back to a information session. Thanks, councillors. Somebody move that way. Yep. Thank you. Business of great urgency.
Someone, in their wisdom, drove over the top of our pedestrian refuge and demolished it. Now, we fought long and hard as a council. I wasn't organised as council. To when Boland got the footage that might be a person who drove deliberately over this pedestrian refuge. History. And you know, God, we thought long hard. Drove over this for the sake of our kids. How bad are we going in our area when this happens in our daylight, I believe, on Saturday? So I'd like to see the council management. Into whether this on the day about, Ray Johnson was born, and Johnson said, thoroughly disappointed. He works hard and so does his team out there. And with our kids, and some kids look like top of this and flattened it, and went out of his way to defer around one side, knocked the two yellow arching barricades over and the other side. It was great.
I'd say the police are all over this.
I do have a matter of great urgency, which I hope.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, I do have a matter of great urgency, which I hope that you do consider it a matter of great urgency. Through you to Mr Muir, I've been notified by several local people who travel along John Mackey Drive at 6:30, 5:30 in the morning, and there are trucks after trucks after trucks lining up to use our landfill. Is there a CCT footage out there? Is there somebody on the gate? It's been brought to my attention now by at least 4 different male gentlemen in the Portland-Wallerawang area that commute there every day. And I personally myself went through there about 3 weeks ago early, and there were 4 trucks ready sitting there at opposite chicken farm. Now, they're going to use our landfill for a very minimal cost, if any, and they're going to stop Wallerawang people using that landfill. This has been going on for months and months and months. So I think as a matter of great urgency, we either need to get CCT footage out there or someone on the gate that can protect our landfill at Wallerawang.
I think Mr Muir's got an answer for this one.
Yes, we do have CCTV. The trucks in question, by the sound of it, are probably approved material, which is virgin material for rehabilitation, which is actually coming up from the roads and tunnelling projects in Sydney.
Yes, I've heard that.
And so it's actually used at the facility for future rehabilitation. So it's not actually waste.
Right. All right. Thank you.
I have one.
Coleman.
I received an email today from a resident in regards to the breast cancer breast screen, and it states that unfortunately the breast screen New South Wales Sydney West is currently experiencing limitation with service delivery due to a reception staff shortage. This has resulted in the temporary suspension of the service mobilisation to Lithgow, and it's highly unlikely that it will be returning this calendar year. They're saying that we continue to post invites to women in Lithgow 4 weeks prior to their screening due date. They are offering clinics at Katoomba, Penrith or Bathurst. I remember a couple of years ago when Councillor McAndrew brought forward a notice of motion in regards to the fact that the machine was taken out at the hospital. Now the van's not coming due to staff shortages. We need to make some inquiries in regards to this. 1 in 9 women die of breast cancer a week in this country, and we need to do something about it.
Yeah, we'll certainly follow that one up. We'll make a request to Nepean Health.
We have a contact, I think, at breast cancer.
We have a contact. Mr. Muir will definitely follow that up. Okay, we move to item 14, which is closed council. The report is confidential in accordance with section 10A brackets 2 of the Local Government Act. Commercial information of a confidential nature that would, if disclosed, prejudice the commercial position of a person who supplied it, or confer a commercial advantage or on a competitor of the council, or reveal a trade secret. Could I move?
I'll move that way, thank you.
And if there's anybody in the public gallery that says that this should not go to closed council? Okay, thank you. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to worry about a recess. I think we'll just move straight ahead. Thank you. Yeah. Are we going to what? Oh, yeah. And by the way, we are going to turn off the live streaming for the closed council. Thank you. Mm.